Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Purpose Up podcast. Today, I am super excited to have with me Dr. Grace Lee. Welcome.
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and to speaking with everyone today.
All right. Do you prefer Grace, Dr. Lee? What's the best way to?
Just call me Grace.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off. I'm super excited about this conversation. Who are you and what are you up to in the world currently?
I love that question. Who are you? And the reason why is because, in the world of work, people always ask, how are you? Who are you? And the first thing people go to is they default to a job title. Right? So I like to say, my name, and I'm actually based in Vancouver, Canada right now. And for a long time, I've had this identity crisis because, I'm originally from Hong Kong and I've been since in school and college, all in English speaking countries. So I've had this I didn't have dual citizenship, but I had this dual identity of, well, I want to assimilate, I want to fit in, but at the same time, I don't want to lose touch with my roots, my Asian roots and my language, my culture, right? So if you are now, fast forward many years, I'm a lot more mature than I was back then as a college student. Now you're sitting here, you ask me, who are you? I'm someone who's passionate about career. Because to me, a career is not something you do to pay the bills. It's not something you do to earn an income to pay the bills and to make a living, right? For me, a career is the greatest form of expression of who you are and the impact you want to have in this world. And the life I live reflects that, and the message I want to get out there reflects that too. So who I am is a career mentor. I'm a career educator. I don't like to say that I'm a career coach because for me, a career coach is someone who helps you out with your resume, tweaks your cover letter a little bit. Then when you land that job, they're out of your life and it's kind of like very transactional, right? So for me, mentorship is, there's follow through. It's a lifelong, I will hold your hand and hold you accountable and make you do things that are uncomfortable for you, but it's to get you to have the result, to become the person you say you want to become because you have certain outcomes in your life that you desire.
I love it. So it's a great summary, and I can feel the passion and the what differentiates you with that description. So you weren't always this clear about what you wanted to do. So if you could take us on what were some of those pivotal points on your journey that helped you to get here?
Pivotal points. Oh, starting from way back then, it would have been something that was life-changing for me on my 8th birthday when my family and I were in a car accident and it was a head-on collision, high speed. My mom was driving, my father was in passenger seat. My older brother and I were in the back seat. And there wasn't a lot of education back then, so we didn't have our seatbelts on. We were kind of like, my parents kind of like put down the back seat to make it like a bed for us, laid down some towels, and we were like lying there like a bed.
Right.
And so when it collided head on, we were thrown everywhere. And that was a pivotal moment because my mom passed away. And that was what changed my life because I had to be independent at such a young age. Before that, I never knew my father. After that, I had to get to know my father. But unfortunately, there were things about our relationship that didn't follow through. And so I was left to fend for myself. I had to be independent from the age of 10. And it was that moment where I realized I felt it, the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I didn't feel like I had a future. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't feel supported. I didn't have financial or moral support. And I just gave up on life. Right. So that was the first pivotal moment. Huge one.
That's absolutely bonkers for me to try and even comprehend. And does it ever like sound weird to you when you say it? Like, 'cause it sounds so surreal.
It doesn't sound surreal, actually, because it sounds very real to me. Not surreal. Yeah, it sounds very real to me. What does come up for me is just the gratitude of all that I've been through at a moment and in years of my life where I was so ashamed of that story. And now that I've owned it, I use that story to inspire other people and to show them that it is possible to design your own destiny. It doesn't matter what the past is indicative of. It's not an indicative of anything, that you can write your own future the way you desire.
All right. Beautiful. So from an early age, you had to fend for yourself. What are some of those other inflection points?
It was, so years had gone by of me being in survival mode, just not knowing where I was going to end up, giving up on life. I didn't think about career at the time. I didn't think I even had a chance until I was 14. And I serendipitously met this older couple. And how I met them was I was working at a restaurant. I started working in a restaurant when I was 11. And I was doing all the menial stuff, waitressing, washing, cashier, things like that. And this couple came to eat at the restaurant. They were astute. They noticed that there's something about her. I think she needs a place to stay. And when they ate their meal, they settled the bill. They kind of just invited me, Grace, I think you need a place to stay. Why don't you come and stay with us? And that was what supposedly should turn my life around, but it didn't at that moment because I didn't trust them.
Okay.
Right. I didn't trust them. I didn't feel that they were sincere, and I felt like I needed to be on my toes. I was still in survival mode. I felt like I still need to be on my toes in case this is just temporary. I need to, protect my feelings. I don't want to have a relationship with them only for them to abandon me, things like that. So that was one moment where I was all of a sudden in a better place, physically a better place.
Right.
And then 2 years later, when I was 16, that was the first time I was in a mental space to think about my career and my life. And simply the only thing that happened at 16, it was a simple thing. It was a shift from realizing that I don't have to worry about survival anymore because they are the real deal, right? They're sincere. They meant what they said. I really can stay here for as long as I need. Yeah. And as soon as you're out of that space, all of a sudden you have the mental capacity to think about the next level. And for me, it was career. And it was, how am I going to do that? Because I still didn't have financial support. I mean, they gave me a place to stay, but there was no allowance. There was no money. There was no transfer of money, right? And
Right.
I didn't blame them. It was just the arrangement. And I was so grateful for the love they gave me,
Uh-huh.
but there wasn't going to be a continued financial support. And so it was getting creative and resourceful of, okay, first of all, what do I want in my life? And how am I going to get it?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack there.
There is. Sorry about that.
What do you think was most sorry, I've got all right, like we said, that and K. It's all taken care of now. Okay. Um, when you started thinking about what was possible for you, what came up for you?
At that age of 16, I really didn't think anything was possible yet. It was like, but I was exposed to what most people are exposed to, that programming from society, programming from teachers that says, well, if you want to get a good job in the future, you got to go to school and get good grades so that you can get a better paying job. And I wasn't immune to that. I heard that programming.
Right.
It's like this societal central dogma out there that that's the way to have a future, is to go to school and get a good job. And that's the only thing I knew
Mm-hmm.
based on my wisdom at 16. So for me, it was, I got to go to school. Okay. So if I want a life, I want a career in the future. I didn't know what it was, but in order to get there, I got to go to school. So then my next task, my whole existence at 16 was, how do I get the money so that I can afford to go to school? Right. So it was one step at a time. And I did it through learning about scholarships. Yeah. Right. And so for me, if it was do or die. If I don't get the scholarship, no one's going to pay my tuition and I'm not going to make it happen. I didn't know anything else except I got to go to school. So it was do or die. And I did. I applied myself. It was something that I passionately decided I don't want to give up on life anymore. I have to be. And the first thing was, I need to be independent. So that means go to school is the only paradigm I knew, go to school. So I got the scholarship. I went to college, and there it was. I accomplished the first checkbox, in the checkbox milestone that I thought was going to lead to the career I wanted, was to go to school.
Right.
Accepted.
Awesome. Interested. So I have a question for you. You
Yeah.
had so much adversity, and your kind of like back was up against the wall. Do you think that type of pressure helped you in a way to prove to yourself that you were capable of anything that you put your mind to?
I love that question. And here's the thing, and this is just a very personal thing. I never felt I needed to prove to myself anything. I felt I needed to prove to everyone else everything.
Right.
Okay. Because remember, I was the one that was unwanted. I was the unwanted child. And what that did for me was it instilled this belief that I was so unlovable.
Gotcha.
Right. It took away my confidence. It did a huge number on my self-esteem. And I blamed myself for being in that position. Like, oh, of course it's me because I'm just so unvaluable. I don't have any value. I'm worthless. That's why it's happening to me. It's because it's me and I'm nobody. Right. And so that's why when I was working towards this goal of I got to go to school, it was I want to prove to the people, everybody else outside of me, that I have worth. And so for me, and although it was, of course, it was a very twisted and a less mature perspective, I thought that I could earn that value by accomplishing my first goal of getting in college.
All right. So
Yeah.
college wasn't the utopia you thought it would be.
It was the utopia in the sense that I did well, right? Because it was programmed in me. You got to do well in school, go to school and do well in school. I did well in school. I was the straight A student. I went the full 9 yards, right to a PhD in neuroscience. I was the poster child of doing well in school, right? But that does not equate to something I call vocational confidence. It doesn't equate to knowing what you want in life or getting the things that you want in life.
As an aside, where did you focus in neuroscience, and how has that helped you in your path along the way?
Mhm. I see. My interest in neuroscience was a seed that was planted at that car accident when I was 8, because my mom, she passed away from brain trauma, and myself, I was so close to becoming a quadriplegic. So I didn't have a spinal cord injury, but I was very close to it. And there was definitely some CNS nerve sensitivities that, or loss of the sensation a little bit that happened as a result of it. So
Right.
all of that is neuroscience. So it seeded the interest for me. And I didn't discover that until later in life, that was what I really wanted to do, was to help patients with, who aren't able to be helped by the medical care system because of our limited understanding of brain health and brain in disease or injury. So that was how I chose neuroscience. I went into research in spinal cord research, and then I did brain trauma. I helped patients with brain trauma. So it was literally the seed that was planted a long time ago.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
I'm interested with your background. So just as an aside, there's brain trauma. So let's talk about like blunt trauma, like you've got in an accident, and then there's also situational trauma that also happens to the brain. I assume you're talking about more of the former with blunt brain trauma, but did you study both types?
In my PhD, it was the blunt trauma, severe brain trauma that leads someone to being in coma or certain vegetative states.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the question I was trying to answer was, how do we better care for them?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Understood. Okay. So you make it to the end of your PhD program. Still, that doesn't help you with your kind of vocational confidence that you were saying. So you went out to prove your value out in the real world, right?
I kind of gave up on the needing to prove myself to others. I
Okay.
kind of gave up on that after my first degree. No, because first degree, you're like in your early 20s, and I didn't have a well-rounded perspective of the world and human behavior yet, right? And I was still trying to find myself to discover who am I and what's important to me. So what happened was, as I went through college, it was literally just that linear thinking. Oh, what happens after a bachelor's degree? Oh, a master's degree. So I went to the UK, I did my master's degree, and naturally linear thinking. Oh, after a master's, you do a PhD. And that's a great way, by the way, to postpone life planning. It's a great way to postpone, looking at what value you want to put into the marketplace and making a living. It's a great way to postpone that. And that's what I did. So here I am in this PhD program in my current city in Vancouver, Canada. Great thing it did was it helped me to solidify my dream of living here. Right? So I did it by applying to a PhD locally, got the PhD, and I stayed here. So check off that list, got into the city I wanted. But the thing is, the education system, and this is something I teach in career education as well, the education system was not designed to teach you about career development. right? It was designed to teach you historical and subject matter knowledge. And it's great for that. You choose
Right.
what your academic major, and they give you a curriculum. And in that curriculum, you have all the technical knowledge, the historical knowledge in those various subject matters. And beyond that, it's like data collection. You have all this knowledge. The education system also does not teach you how to organize it, how to package and repackage the knowledge that you've collected over the years and turn it into invaluable wisdom that you can get paid for in the marketplace. The education system does not teach that. And it does not teach you how to answer the more important questions in life, like who am I, the question you asked in the beginning, and what's important to me. And
All
so
right.
during my PhD, that was when I started to feel this gap. And I saw a lot of my peers being burned by the system as well, because they were also programmed, go to school, get good grades, and then you can get a better paying job. But the reality of job market realities is so different. And a lot of times formal education doesn't fit in with the context of job market realities. Right. So I set out to close the education gap. And when I first started to do what I'm doing now, it was simply in the classroom in college, holding seminars, workshops, and teaching concepts of how do we think about career navigation? How do we think about future and future work? How do we take knowledge and apply it cross-disciplinary? How do we get paid for our value in the marketplace? And it was just teaching, but there was no follow through. I just taught it, and then that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and from your early days teaching that, does that still like a core of what you do today? I'm sure it's evolved a lot, but ha- what's the evolution of that teaching now from where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. Teaching and coaching is at the core of what I do. It's just now I don't do it in the classroom, because when you're in the classroom and you're locally, I can only serve that one city or that one region. Right. So I take my teaching online and I teach it, and I take that teaching where people from anywhere they are, any place they are in their life, any place they are in their educational journey, they can come and they can learn, or they can come and they can discover for themselves what's important to them and what their purpose is, and how to build a career and how to build a legacy even. Yeah.
So we're gonna come back to that because that's super important. And you had some jobs along the way that didn't quite satisfy you, right? Like you've been in that unsatisfied job position. So can you talk a little bit about that and how you felt misaligned? Just because I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that.
Oh, absolutely. So here I am, after PhD. I'm now Dr. Grace Lee, and I did a fellowship because that's what people do after they finish their PhD. They do a fellowship. So I did a fellowship, and I changed my specialty in the fellowship. Right, I went from a basic neuroscience background into sort of more clinical neurology. So that was a very huge shift in the field, but I made that transition, and it turned out well. But I later found that it was the academic culture. I was still in the pillars of the academic culture in the institution. I felt like the values in the institution didn't really match with mine.
Okay.
Yeah. For one reason is because they define success within the confounds of you must publish and you have to publish a certain way. And, the measure of success, the currency for success was defined for you in the academic pillar. And I wanted the freedom to define my own career success. Right. And so I left that and I went into the corporate world. Right. And this was something that it was a really huge accomplishment in the sense that I actually have no business background. My
Right.
master's was not an MBA. I never took a course in commerce or economics or anything like that. And I was given a pretty senior manager role in a biotech company, with global representation. And I was responsible for business strategy. There was a product line that brought in about $4 million a year. And my role was to strategically align with different departments and raise the company's profits, the bottom line, generate more sales and increase the revenue generation of that product line. So there was a
How did
lot
you
of,
convince them you were the right woman for the job?
well, that's what vocational confidence means, right? Having vocational confidence means that you can have any career setback. Doesn't matter what the setback is, but you can reinvent yourself. right? And you can command top dollars for the skills that you have in the marketplace. And you can do it again and again, despite what's happening in the world around you, because you don't have control over that anyway.
Right.
The economy, the availability of job postings, the hidden job market, you can't control any of those things. But when you have vocational confidence, and that's a skill, when you have that, you can do it, and you can reinvent again and again, or you can advance your career again and again because you
Right.
have vocational confidence.
All right. We're gonna dive into that. So I'm still curious though. I mean, it sounds like fascinating that you don't have that background there. How did you do in it?
In the beginning, it was a nightmare. I was so overwhelmed because, first of all, I had to learn everything that an MBA student would learn.
Right.
I had to learn how to read balance sheets, and I had to learn to speak corporate lingo. I had to learn how to read these crazy spreadsheets, and I had to learn how to do business intelligence, market research. I had to learn sales, marketing, everything, negotiate with partners, look for opportunities, everything to raise the bottom line. And so the first month was a huge and a very steep learning curve, right? But I wanted it. I wanted it. I was driven, I was committed, and I gave them my word by accepting the offer and negotiating. There was initial salary negotiation as well. And after that, when you sign on the dotted line, right? The word becomes my flesh. You give your word, that's my integrity. And that's a huge value. I have that value. I place a high value on integrity.
Right.
So it was all in. I signed on the dotted line. Okay, I'm your girl now. So I will do what it takes to fulfill those, fulfill my role. Yeah. So it was steep learning curve.
Okay. So let's talk about the results and then what?
Right. So the results was the first year, 40% increase in that product line. It was amazing. And the communications, I improved the communications between the sales department, the marketing department, and the product development department. They didn't quite call it that, but there were different lingo within the company. And so the communication lines were better, things were more streamlined, and I had a lot more a clear picture on what is the market for products like that.
Right.
Out there already, and where are some opportunities where we can dominate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there were a lot of proposals that were in place. I worked at that company for 2 years before I left.
All right. And you left because?
Well, it's corporate, and anything you can think of in terms of corporate, it really was there. There's the company was, it was very large. I worked at the main headquarters, but there were sales departments around the world. And so when you have an organization like that, and it's kind of been like grandfathered in, the decision making tends to be a bit slower, right? There tends to be this kind of like this culture started setting in where, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it, and so it was kind of like, again, the previous situation where the values of being in that corporate environment didn't really meet my values. I wanted a role that I wanted to be in a position where it was more dynamic, where I could have innovation, where there could be innovation, where we can do things that were never once possible, where we could challenge the status quo. I wanted to be more on the front line of helping people, the direct people I wanted to help, instead of just, let's just increase the company's bottom line or increase the corporate revenues. I wanted to have more of an impact on the individual.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump to that. What does it look like to help people with their careers, and what's the approach, and what are the kind of keys to your success with that?
Oh, those are like 3 questions in one.
All right, you can take them one by one. We can come back.
Okay. What the first question was, what is helping someone with a career mean to me?
What does that look like as you're starting to help somebody figure out, like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, and I don't have much confidence. How do you coach them?
Right. Okay. So that's like 2 different things. There's people who come to me and they say, I don't know what I want to do. And this is like usually, and not always, usually it's for someone who is earlier on in their career phases. You talk about phases of your career. They're earlier on in their career phases. Maybe they're a fresh graduate, or they graduated and they've just had kind of like their first job, right? And then they still feel like, okay, that first job was just to hold me over because I finished school, but I still don't know what I want to do, right? And then there are those who have been working for some time, and they kind of feel that, well, I don't know how I chose this field. I kind of just stumbled upon it. I kind of just stumbled upon it. And now I've been working here, and it's like related to my degree. I like it. I like it. It pays me decently. I like it, but there's something missing and I don't know what it is. So there's that conversation. And then there's the other type of conversation where you have men and women who have had successes in their career, and they've climbed that corporate ladder, or they've advanced their career to a point they are providing for preteens or teenage children in the house, and they're at this point where they want to advance their career, because they've had successes, so they know what it tastes like, they know what it feels like, but they now it's about legacy building,
Right.
leave behind a legacy, and there's like two paths here. The first path on someone in that legacy building mindset is like, okay, I've been in this company for 17 years or 20 years or more than 20 years. And you know what? I don't see myself doing this anymore. I don't know how I lasted this long. In fact, if I'm really brutally honest with myself, I don't think I ever liked it. It's just kind of something I did, and now here we are, and months turns into years, and I don't, right? And now what do? I can't start from scratch. I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to take a junior position, but
Right.
I don't see myself doing this. And then there's the other path. So that's one path. And then the other path is I like it. I like my career. I've been here 20 years. I want to go further. I know I can further. I'm not at my fullest potential yet. I've tried everything to advance my career, but nothing's working, and I'm so impatient. Right. So you see, there's so many pockets that people enter to. And so they come to me, and depending on which bucket, for lack of a better term, they belong to,
Right.
it's a different process that I take them through. There are different conversations I have with them, but really it does start with one conversation. Right. So if you're asking me about the process, it has to start with one conversation. And so I lead them through the conversation to uncover, okay, what are you currently doing? What's happening in your world? Tell me what's happening in your world. What is, tell me, 10,000 foot view, what's been your career path so far? What's been working? What's not working for you?
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I have that coffee table conversation with them 1 year from now. Let's say we're at a coffee shop 1 year from now, and you're telling me, Grace, this is the best year of my life. Then I ask them, what had to have happened in that 1 year for you to say that to me?
Okay. For sake of simplicity, let's start with the middle track, the person who's gotten to a certain stage in their career with some success, but then realized it's not for them. That very much echoes where I was. And for me, I know I was, successful in terms of money, and successful in terms of, people thought I was doing well, but it wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't really aligned with the values of the customers we were serving. It just didn't seem meaningful to me. I know I had a bad theory about, you can't make money doing meaningful work. And I was scared to try something new because stability for me was also a thing. I was like, oh, I don't want to get rid of benefits and such. So how do you handle those types of conversations with folks?
Right. So now I've been in that situation as well when I was in corporate. So I've experienced it well. So I know how that feels. I know how that feels. But here's what I found. Oftentimes when we say that we're working in a role right now and we're unfulfilled, it is something that we perceive as missing in our life. Right. So then it's about having that conversation. What do you feel has been missing in your life? Right. Because your values come from come from your voids. Right. The voids in your life that you perceive as voids are what shapes what you value so much right now. And sometimes the value you have right now could be what's getting in the way of having that fulfillment.
Right.
And oftentimes, and you said it, you said significance, right? Significance and benefits, security. You said, safety, security. And oftentimes when someone values safety and security, it means that they have a basic human need of wanting more certainty, right? Certainty looks a certain way, right? Certainty looks like a certain way. And what it looks like is having predictability,
Right.
right? That's what it looks like. And which is kind of like at odds with wanting significance. Because if you want to have significance, it means you want to know what you do matters. It means you have some influence out there in the marketplace. That requires some risk taking, which is at odds with the value of certainty, right? So then it's about looking at what are your innermost desires. How have they been prioritized in your life? Because the way that they've been prioritized in your life will exhibit as what's evidence of what's really coming true in your career. Right? So then it's looking at what have you been desiring and how does that match or not match with what you say you actually desire for your career.
Gotcha. Okay. So in
Yeah.
other words, I mean, I like what you said about looking at the voids in your life as being those sign points of what your values are, which is, I think, a very, very wise way. So often when we are in dissatisfaction or we're in those states that we don't enjoy being in, we can be grateful that our values are trying to send us a message.
And I've heard people say to me, I don't know what my values are. I don't know what I value. Right. But the thing is, I challenge that. You do. You actually do. And they might say, well, no, I don't, because I like so many things. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I value. But the thing is, you do. If you step back and you remove yourself from the emotions you're feeling of, oh no, of the doom and of the panic, if you remove yourself from those emotions and you pretend as though you're a third party looking at your life and looking at what the history of where you've been, the evidence of what you value is right there. All you have to do is look at what's true in your life or what's coming true in your life right now. And that will give you clues on what you've been valuing. Whether you knew it or not, unbeknownst to you or not, you did have a value, right? So then is the outcome of your life right now what you really want? If it is yes, then those were the values that you should stay true to. If the answer is no, it's not, I'm unfulfilled, then it's okay. What were the values that drove my actions to get the outcome I have right now? And then it's about which values do I need to bring forward in order to have the values in order to have the outcome I really want.
Okay. So again, using me as an example, so we have something to illustrate with. I had to shift my risk-taking behavior in order to follow a career that I was really passionate about, right? So I could make a big significance in people's lives and have the potential for a big upside as well.
Mm-hmm. But if you look at what fulfillment, the definition of fulfillment, and in decades of study of neuroscience and psychology as well, human psychology, fulfillment comes from contribution.
Right.
Fulfillment comes from growth, right? When you are personally growing, when you are growing into a better version of yourself, when you are adding value to other people's lives and you can see the change and you know what you do matters. Fulfillment comes from activities like that. Right. So it's not just about, okay, to be fulfilled, I need to now take a little bit more risks. It could be a byproduct of what you need to do. It requires taking risks, right? But really, it's like shifting from primarily putting your desire for certainty and instead reprioritizing that to a priority on contribution or growth.
All right. So if we look at a lot of folks out there, I think I know there's probably a lot of folks that want to contribute more, feel that fulfillment, and they still feel stuck, right? So what types of processes do you work with them to kind of get unstuck? And is that a common pattern that you see?
Stuck, sorry, what do you mean? Stuck in their job, or what do you mean?
Yeah. Stuck in their job, stuck in certain mindsets, kind of feeling like they don't have as many options as they probably do.
Okay. So I love that question. So here's the thing. Your reality is 100% based on your perception of that reality.
Amen.
100%. Yeah. So if there's a perception somewhere in there that I don't have value to bring, or I can't get out of this, or I don't have the skill or the talent or the resources to make a contribution, then that's a perception. That's a perception. And it just takes a little bit of coaching. It takes coaching. It takes powerful conversations to realize what is the truth versus what you've been believing all along.
Yes.
Right? Because we are 100% perceptions based. Our brain has a ton of cognitive biases because we're constantly trying to make sense of this world. In a world where there's information overload, in a world where the pace is going so quickly, we just have to move fast. We have to fill in the blanks. We have to make sense of things. We have to, you know what I mean? We have to appear a certain way. Yet we have to satisfy our basic needs. Then there's a lot of overlook. There's a lot of oversight that is room to happen. There's a lot of biases that we're so open to, right? And so when we start to imagine a reality where, for example, I don't have the resources,
right?
And I'm using the word imagination on purpose, right? Because our perceptions become so real to us, and the neuroscience of that is our brains cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. And I'll illustrate a point. I mean, have you ever had an experience where you had ruminations in your mind of an incident that happened in the past, and it was highly emotional? In that moment, somehow you just started thinking about it, and it started going down that spiral of playing the movie of what happened to you in the past. As you're sitting there or standing there, you can begin to actually feel those emotions again, like
Right.
it's actually happening right now, because our brains can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imaginary. So it's all about your subconscious mind is going to be infinitely more powerful than your conscious mind. So the only way, the first way, and perhaps the only way to get out of that stuckness, that feeling stuckness, is to reprogram the subconscious mind.
Cool. I love it, and I totally agree with you in terms of the perceptions and our filters and people's belief systems becoming their reality. How do we reprogram our subconscious? What are the best ways to do it? It's a subject matter I'm fascinated with by now, as I look to help my clients as quickly as possible get from, a belief that doesn't serve them to a belief that does serve them. What's the magic sauce?
I love that magic sauce. It starts with intent.
Okay.
Instead of living by accident, living by default, got to start living with intent. And an intent starts with a decision. It's deciding that I'm going to be intent about my career. I'm going to be intent about the things that I'm thinking about. I'm going to have intent about the things that I let in my life, the things that I have around me that have a real influence on how I think, how I feel, how I see the world, right? Because all those influences have an impact whether you know them or not.
Right.
Right? So making a decision and when you decide, the word origin of decide, decidere, means to cut off all other options. It means cutting off. So when you decide to go this direction, when you decide to reprogram, when you decide that this thought or belief is not serving me well, it means you're going to cut off all ties to that thought or belief that's not serving you well.
Yeah,
but how do you, right? Go ahead.
I want to highlight that for a sec, because I think it's such an important distinction between trying and deciding. So even early on in my kind of entrepreneurial ventures, there was still I still had those threads back to, I could always go back to a full-time job, and I thought about I could fall back on it, but somebody gave me the metaphor of, if you're looking for the key and you're trying to put it into a door, if you're not aligned with it, you just won't get into the door. But if you're 90% of the way with their intent, but 10% not there, the key will go in the door, but you'll just struggle to open it up. But if the intent is 100% there, then all of the grooves in the key will work and you'll open the door. So I think it is an important distinction between try and decide.
I like that analogy. And I just want to stack on top of that with trying. And I have because I talk to a lot of clients who tell me, I'm trying, I want to succeed and I'm trying so hard, or I've tried everything and it's not working. And here's the thing about trying. If you're trying to succeed, then you're wasting your time, because it's not about trying. Here's why. So why is that, right? Because people who succeed were not trying to succeed, in as much as people who fail were never trying to fail, right? So it's not about trying, right? It is about what is it in my subconscious mind that I'm perceiving in my reality that's actually not true, right? What am I perceiving in my subconscious mind that is standing in my own way of having the success that I want?
Right.
There's some things that have been programmed to me. And the thing is, our brains will act consistently with our programming, always.
So I had a theory that I'm not the entrepreneurial type, right? Since I craved security so much. So when you have someone with a belief like that, how are you going to reprogram them?
Right. So okay. So first and foremost, if you say you're in corporate and you want to be going into entrepreneurial, it's about getting real on the reasons why. Why do you want to go into entrepreneurial? Is it something like, there's this buzz thing, oh, don't have a job, be your own boss instead. If it's getting on the bandwagon, then that's not the best reason to start a business and to go through that, right?
All the
So
Instagram influencers are doing it.
I know, right? So it's about getting real with the why, because the why is what will solidify your intent, right? The why, a really strong why, and that's everlasting, a really strong one, will form a very good foundation for the reason, for the decision, and for that intent. So then I always would look at you, okay, so why do you want to why do you want to be an entrepreneur? What is it about that career path that inspires you, right? And then yeah.
And for me, it was I want to coach people, be my own boss, and that allows me to spend more time with my family, and the upside to really create wealth.
Okay. Okay. So then I would go through into a conversation to see whether or not you've explored the lifestyle and the reality of becoming an entrepreneur, everything it entails. Right? Because making a career decision means that you are informed about what that really is and what it isn't, everything that it is and isn't. Because when we choose a certain, like say, and I'm not saying you did this, Ben, but let's say that someone wants to go into entrepreneurship and it sounds like a good idea for the reasons that you said, be your own boss, help people, create something. And people could become an infatuation, meaning that they're infatuated with the positives. They don't see the dualistic nature of the universe. They're infatuated with the positives that they overlooked the drawbacks of it, right? So the conversation then becomes, are you aware that there's a duality even in entrepreneurship? Although you hate your corporate position, this sounds like a promised land to you. Are you aware of the drawbacks of it? And are you accepting those equally? Right? Can you accept the drawbacks that will necessarily happen when you go into entrepreneurship? So making that rounded decision so that it's not something that you go into and then you kind of feel like, I didn't sign up for this. That is what you want to avoid. I hear this all the time. You know what? I thought it was going to be great. I didn't sign up for this. That is a progress killer. It kills progress. When you get into that thought, I didn't sign up for this, it kills progress. And all of a sudden you're not inspired to continue to gain momentum.
All right. I love it. So I'm not hearing anything about hypnotizing people or doing some other magic in terms of accessing their subconscious, or your subconscious gun that you're just going to, get a new belief system in it. How are we going to do that?
Well, I have actually never experienced hypnotism myself.
Okay.
But actually, I've heard a lot of anecdotes from people I trust and people I know who've done it and said it was very helpful, right? But here's the thing. There's no such a thing as one thing you can do, one strategy you can do that is cookie cutter and it works for everyone.
Right.
It's the same thing like in medicine. Even with cancer medicine, those biologics medicine that come out, they go through clinical drug trials and now they're out in the market. Your oncologists prescribes it to you, it still has a 50-50 chance of working. Even though it was proven in all the drug trials and the data says that it works, there's always what you call a bell curve. Where do you fall on that bell curve? You never know until you go and do it, where you fall on that bell curve. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying yes or no hypnotics, stay away from it. I'm not. I personally don't have an experience with hypnotics. I know people who have, and they would swear by it.
Right.
Just like acupuncture. I've never tried it, even though I'm Asian, but I've had people who are very close to me with ailments, pains, chronic pains. They've
Yes.
tried it and it was what you call magic.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say both of those have been magic for me. So I'll plug both of those. Acupuncture helped me run the New York Marathon when I had an injury. And then I credit hypnotherapy with help flipping a switch to help me finally quit smoking for good.
Awesome.
So I'm a big proponent of both of those. And, I do agree with the assertion that our subconscious is so powerful. So I'm constantly looking for ways of like, okay, what's the quickest way in there to kind of really stick our visions in there so they stick as powerfully as possible. So what type of strategies do you recommend? We started with intent, right? And then a vision, a decision. What's next?
Yeah. So most people aren't able to have momentum because they don't know which direction they want to have momentum towards. They don't know what you're working towards.
Right.
And it's sort of like when you are planning a trip and you are using, say it's a road trip and you're driving somewhere and you want to use your GPS on your phone, right? You need to know your starting point and you need to know your destination. Those are the two essential coordinates. When you enter those into your GPS, then you get to choose the route. The route. Do I want to be on highways? Do I want to get the fastest path there or the shortest distance? You get to choose your route based on your values or what you desire. The same thing is true in your life and career. You need to know those coordinates. But the reason why people are fearful of taking that route, or they still say they resist, there's some resistance, right? Because they feel that once I choose my destination, I'm stuck with that choice. And it's simply not true. It's not a life sentence. It's simply choosing, because you have to choose in order to have momentum. You have to make a decision to have momentum, and forward momentum is what's going to drive results, right? And people are afraid to fail. What if I chose this destination, started going there and couldn't get what I wanted, or I figured out it wasn't right for me? Then I wasted all this time. I wasted, all this energy. And so that fear of failure prevents them, and then you get that procrastination of making a choice.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm currently in a coaching program right now that is on how to get to my next level in the business, right? And so part of that is choosing my specific niche. So speaking to what you were just saying, it's like there's fear about choosing the wrong niche, right? But I'm not married to it forever. I can have some fun with it. And I get to just pick it and go and pivot if I need to, rather than where I've been in the past is like analysis paralysis of, well, I don't know. I need to think about it some more. This is a big decision and we don't want to make the wrong one here. And it speaks to that kind of growth mindset of just going for it and not fearing the failure versus like that fixed mindset that's like, oh no, this is going to be bad news. I don't want to fail. People are going to make fun of me.
You just triggered something. You just reminded me about something. Even that, and that's also why people make a lot of backup plans. In case plan A doesn't work, I need to have plan B, and then plan C, plan D, and plan E, right? And if you think about the psychology behind that, why do you have to have a plan B? In case that doesn't work. Really, what it boils down to is, do you trust yourself that you will make it work? Do you trust yourself, your abilities, your competence, your experience, everything you have right now, the mentors you have in your life, everything that you've learned in your life? Do you not trust that you're going to make it work? And even and failure, and sure, you want to avoid failure, but the thing is, you can't avoid failure because failure is a feature of it.
Right.
See, and when you put it that way, failure is a feature of it. It's not an indication of non-success. Failure is never an indication of non-success. It's just a feature of the journey. Any journey you take, entrepreneurship, corporate, any journey, parenthood, any journey you take, the failures are a feature of it. right? So then the thing is, if you believe in yourself, you believe in your ability, the people you have in your life, you have that support system, you have that network, you're purposefully and intentfully creating your environment, the environment to succeed, then you move along the path and you encounter your first failure. Actually, I would say that you should celebrate, because how many of those failures do you need to overcome and get feedback from it, and you can hone your strategy with each failure, then that will actually help you to move into the right direction even faster. It's sort of like if you're a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're going to get a yes. How many phone calls you have to make? Eventually you're going to get a yes. So
Right.
how many times do you have to get rejected? And you know that eventually it's going to be a yes. So then the strategy, then the mindset is, okay, good. I have 5 no's out of the way. How many no's do I need? And then it'll be a yes, right? So it means progress. The failures and the rejections means progress, because if you're not failing, you're actually not moving.
Right. Yeah. And another way I've heard that being said is the only failure is inaction.
Yeah, that's so true.
All right. So we've talked about people's belief systems and trusting themselves. How do you help people reprogram that inner dialogue? Because it's like, I know I've got the experience, but there's still some doubt in there. How do you help people change that conversation in their head?
Yeah, it's unpacking for them. You have to really go down deep, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It might hurt. It might bring back and resurface some very painful emotions right in the moment, right? But the fact is, I'm not afraid to go there. So I'm not afraid to take my clients there,
Right.
right? But the thing is, when they go there, it's the most liberating activity they will have ever done in their life, especially if they've gone through their life so far without addressing it, right? Without having somebody to help them get to the root of the problem. Because most of the times when we identify, oh, this is the problem I'm having in my career, they're just symptoms.
Right.
It's not the root problem. And we're not taught in formal education to think of the root cause analysis. We're not taught that. Sure, in math, there's like root cause analysis, we're taught about going to the root of it, but we're not taught how to translate that into life. Right? And that's what the education gap I'm talking about. So that's how what I do for my clients.
Okay. And my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, that root cause analysis would be like going back to a time where these beliefs were created and trying to see where that belief was created and working on reframing that. Or is there another, what's that method for getting to the root cause?
Mm-hmm. It's a conversation. The method is a conversation. When you ask such pointed questions, you're asking very pointed questions, very strategic questions. But of course, the questions are guided by what they tell you.
Right.
It has to be guided by what they tell you. It can't be a script that you read, and it never works that way. But then the very pointed questions, because here's the thing. Every problem you have in your life right now, every problem you have in your life, your professional life, your personal life, is just an unasked question. Every problem is an unasked question. So as a coach and as a mentor, I'm the one that finds those questions that they never asked. And I pose those questions. And it gives them, and it opens this space, and a brand new space of exploration, of innovation. And in so doing, as they're answering those questions and they're vocally doing it, they can hear their voices doing it. It causes a neurological trigger. When you're saying something, it's so different when you're saying it out loud compared to when you're saying it yourself. It's kind of like making a declaration.
Right.
Right. So then when I hear them say it, and you hear what you just answered fed back to you, it does something. There's a click that happens. That's why mentorship and coaching could be so powerful. When done right, it could be so powerful. And when done with the right intention, there's that word again, intention, it could be so powerful. Right. And we don't know how to ask the right questions, because school only teaches you to get the right answers.
Right.
Right. We're rewarded for coming up with the right answers. We are praised for it. That's how you get the grades. That's how you get the degree, is if you had the answers. But you get more out of life you have more insight, more wisdom. You get more out of life if you're able to ask questions instead of looking for answers first.
Yes, that reminds me of the Tony Robbins quote that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask.
Ah, okay. Yes, that is so true.
Right.
I would definitely be in alignment with that.
Yeah, and he uses the example of if you're with a partner, for example, you could ask the question, how long is this relationship going to last? And then your subconscious will work on finding a finite answer versus how lucky am I to have this person? And then you'll get a whole new kind of thought process there.
That's right. A whole new thought process, which leads to a whole new outcome.
Totally. What else haven't we covered today that we think is important for folks to know about getting a career that they love?
It's about thinking like a business owner. So here's the thing. And I'm not, and I know that some of you may not be thinking about starting a business. You don't want to be entrepreneurs. And that's not what I'm talking about. Because most people, they navigate their careers and they're doing so from a mindset of being an employee. But the fact is, you're going to be working for a business owner. You're going to get a job. It doesn't matter if it is a startup company, a Fortune 500, or a nonprofit organization. There's going to be a founder and a business owner, and you will be working for her or him, right? So it's time to start thinking like a business owner because you are one, right? Your career is your business. And there's so much about a business that is exactly the same as a career, right? And growing a career, starting a career and growing a career is so similar to starting and growing a business, right? So it's about thinking like a business owner and having a really strong business acumen about it.
Okay. Awesome. So really appreciate your time, your wisdom, and love your passion for helping folks find and live theirs, and love your story as well. So thank you for sharing with us today. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity, and it's great to be talking with you here on your podcast.
Awesome. Where can people learn more about you?
So my movement, this is more than just a business to me. It's a global movement, and I've called it Career Revisionist. And really it means, being a career revisionist are people who have discovered and who have achieved vocational confidence, right? So the website is careerrevisionist.com. And again, I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. Find me, Dr. Grace Lee, on LinkedIn in Vancouver, Canada. And at Career Revisionist, I have my social links there too.
Awesome. Well, yeah, grateful for you and the work that you do in the world, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Keep in touch.
All right.